Hello, everyone. Hi, OneTAKE listeners. Thanks so much for joining me once again. Welcome back to my OneTAKE live stream on LinkedIn Live. For those of you who've not seen one of these before, the gist of OneTAKE is to speak to experts about their perspectives, their experience in the world of work, life, and culture, especially as it relates to sort of future of work technologies. And we've spent the last few weeks also exploring the impacts of global trends on work, life, and culture. So there you have it. I hope everyone is healthy, safe, and well. And if you are joining us, I always like to start the show by suggesting if you are looking for work right now, a lot of people have found themselves out of work. If you are in fact looking for work, Sykes is always hiring. Check us out at jobs.sykes.com. We've got a really strong work at home program so that you can continue to serve the world's leading brands, but do so in your home, which is a very attractive option right now. So there you have it. If you are joining us, please do share the fact that you've joined us, share where you're joining us from in the comment section. And if you've got any questions from me or my guest, absolutely put them in there. We'll try our best. I'll try my best to chew gum and walk at the same time and speak to the guest and pay attention to your questions and bring them up. So please give that a shot. So without further ado, I'm really excited about this one because you heard me talk about work, life, and culture. We cover a lot of that with one person. So I am thrilled to welcome to the show Mark Sears, CEO and founder of CloudFactory. Mark, welcome to OneTAKE.
Ian, it's great to be here. Great to be here.
It's thrilled to have you. So, okay, Mark, I'll give a sort of rapid overview for sake of context setting, but then I'm going to throw it over to you and ask you to tell us really what got you started and how did you get to where you are today. Yeah. We've known each other for quite a while. I'll explore that in a moment too, but you are the founder and CEO of a company called CloudFactory. You employ people in countries all over the world, in Nepal and Kenya and the UK and the US. You're the consummate entrepreneur. You've raised funds to grow this exciting company, and you've actually played a really pivotal role in several different key themes I want to explore today, including impact sourcing, artificial intelligence, and then I want to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship as well. So talk to us about what did you want to be when you grew up? How did you originally get your start? And then your origin story for CloudFactory is outstanding. So if you want to share a little of that with us too, please.
Yeah, that elicits so much emotion, right? What did you want to be when you were growing up? It's actually, that's probably the more boring part of the story. Is I wanted to be a programmer. I wanted to be a computer programmer. I remember grade 2 and a fantastic teacher that put an Apple IIe in front of me, and I started with a little turtle kind of triangle programming, and I was hooked, right? So I think I knew pretty early on that I had a fascination with kind of creating things, right? That blank screen, and I could just it's like a palette. And so that did bleed into the origin story for CloudFactory, because it really was kind of coming out of computer science, business minor, Sun Microsystems, a couple startups. Found me and my wife, right? We got married, and fairly shortly after found ourselves going to Nepal for a 2-week vacation. So 2008, we went for a 2-week vacation in Nepal, a fairly unlikely vacationing spot, but we had some good friends and just some ties. We just wanted to go. It was on our bucket list. And next thing we know, we went and saw the Himalayas and went through the jungle riding elephants and did all that stuff. And then I met some other computer geeks, some software developers from Nepal, and was just so impressed with how sharp they were, just super talented. And I could tell that there was something there. And through our conversations, ended up extending that vacation for 3 weeks, and bought an iMac and started training on Ruby on Rails. And next thing I know, we got a project, and that project turned into starting up a company, and CloudFactory ended up literally stayed on that vacation, but it was not a vacation. We worked very hard But it was 6 years, had our 2 kids, and it changed our lives forever. And that was really the accidental, beautiful story of CloudFactory getting started, of kind of discovering talent and trying to bring some things around to develop and cultivate that talent, and then connect it into the global economy and growing companies that are always looking for that. So yeah,
that's amazing. I love that, because you and I, and I'll tell a little bit about our story, but we share this love of really a global citizenry that we've found through our careers is incredibly capable and passionate and intelligent and is striving for opportunity. You found that in Nepal on a sort of like, it's like Gilligan's Island, on a 3-hour tour that turned into a longer stay, but in 2 weeks. And before I go on, it was Logo. I think Logo is the name of that program, of the little triangle. I remember that too, with Apple IIe. That's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Not to date ourselves, but okay. So we met because this concept of tapping into talent around the world can be called various different things. One of them is just traditional outsourcing, offshoring, tapping into skills that are outside of the walls of your company or outside of the borders of your state or your country. And so we actually met at an IAOP outsourcing conference in Florida. Must have been like 8-9 years ago.
Yeah, maybe 9. Yeah.
And I was setting up a booth with a big goofy scrim with robot clip art on it, because I was in the process of starting to really talk about robotic process automation and how we can use software to automate and digitize, et cetera. And and the longer story is, our scrim and all of the stuff for our booth didn't show up the first day. So we're sitting there, a friend of mine and I are sitting there. We've got a little sign hanging up that just says, "This is our booth," but there's nothing to show. Sitting across the aisle is you at an impact sourcing booth. And so walk over and we strike up a conversation, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
You were there really to educate the outsourcing industry in this concept of what was then, what really only had recently started being called impact sourcing. So do us the privilege of telling us what impact sourcing means. And then there's so much more depth to go into, and you are one of the world's most experienced experts in it. But what is impact sourcing?
Yeah, so impact sourcing, I think you framed it really well, right? Is the outsourcing industry has been something, I think, it's driven a huge amount of accidental impact, right? So just seeing the huge economic impact that's happened over the last few decades globally, obviously, India, Philippines, China, on and on. There's a lot of economies that have really benefited, but it's been more of a byproduct. And so I think there's a huge group of people that have been really kind of rethinking, like, what if we actually designed it from the ground up, not as an accidental byproduct, but actually the core of the mission. And so we like many impact sourcing companies, I think we talk more about, like, we're a mission, that happens to have a business. And in fact, the business, that vehicle is like hugely important. So, we're, you might say we're maybe fairly we're commercial. I love profit. I love capitalism. Like, it's kind of that weird blend of, like, we're certainly not a nonprofit. We're certainly not a charity, but we certainly have at the very core of everything we do, how do we put the actual mission of seeing talented people finding opportunity to really discover and grow and just accelerate kind of that access to opportunity to places that just don't have as much. And so impact sourcing really is just sourcing with a different set of goals. And it actually looks somewhat similar sometimes, but its purpose is different. And so we see a lot of parallels, right? There's a lot of trends of B Corp and social enterprises and a lot of things. And so kind of that same movement that the world is kind of questioning, like, we love business, but something seems a little wrong. Like, I feel they kind of lost our way somewhere. But, like, what is the real purpose? Is it just creating more shareholder value? Like, is it only about maximizing shareholder value, or is there a deeper purpose for business? And I think within our sector, there's a pretty growing group of people kind of on both sides, both the buyers that are looking at their supply chains and their providers and vendors and saying like, wow, we've got some stuff happening here that doesn't seem good.
Right.
And what if we could use that to actually drive good within our supply chain? And then you've got a lot of providers like us that are just trying to say, hey, we're on a mission to really make an impact and do something in the world. And we're gonna fund that through a business model to try and grow and scale and make a dent. So yeah, it's fun. I'll always remember that was great when we met, because I remember it's like, we had very common enemies, right? Like, it was just this old school mentality of just like outsourcing and offshoring. And we're like, like we hit every topic we hit, right? It was like, no, there's gotta be more to this. Like, so we talked about impact sourcing, and we was talking about, just the old model of butts and seats and your mess for less and all this sort of stuff that it's just like, ooh, this isn't it. Like, there's more. Right. And then automation and all that stuff. So it was fun to kind of dream. And I know there was a strong connection because, and then we just kind of met, not like this. Usually it's involved sushi, dim sum, somewhere in the world. And we do rant on these topics that I think we're about to rant on. So, yeah. Yeah.
No, and I love that we're a mission that happens to be a business. And you're right. We were using the tools of capitalism, which is good and healthy and is the engine that created this beneficial outcome. You said you and your wife were on holiday in Nepal. You've got a family, you've got a team for CloudFactory that is in Nepal now. You expanded into Kenya somewhat soon thereafter. Do you have any specific examples of creating impact for an individual, a family, a community in Nepal or Kenya that sticks out that you could share?
Yeah, it's good. There's so many angles to go on. And I think what I usually like to do both the macro and the personal, right? So I think for us, we have this idea of creating meaningful work, right, within a highly scalable, profitable business that creates value in the world, that creates this meaningful work to engage people who are talented but don't have opportunities to come into an environment where we can very intentionally put them through the CloudFactory Academy to see all of us go on the journey of becoming what we call leaders worth following. And so it's that idea for us of saying, hey, let's create a business model that brings people in and we get to accelerate growth, and hopefully that goes out to have ripple effects. And many times what that looks like within our model is community service, right? So we kind of use this idea of leaders worth following. Kind of leadership equals character times competency times community. And so people of high character that are highly competent, that are, out there getting back to their communities are leaders worth following. And so the community aspect is one where I get excited, because we've seen people really embrace it and get together. We've got kind of a team-based model, about 5,000 people in Nepal and Kenya. And specifically, there was a few years in Nepal where it just caught fire. And so we had people going out, and I remember seeing on like national news, there's like a group of our cloud workers that were getting interviewed, and they were cleaning like this really old kind of public place, right, where kind of a well, like where the water comes and people go with jars to fill it up. And it was just like, not tens of years, but maybe hundreds of years worth of and so there's a huge group of people that are cleaning it. And the news is like, who are this? Like, is this an NGO? Like, what? And they're interviewing, and the cloud worker was just hilarious, because they're like what organization? What? Well, no, we just got together with some people and we're doing this. Like, well, who? Is someone paying you to do it? Like, are you a nonprofit? They're like, no, like, well, we work for this company called CloudFactory, but they don't even know we're doing it. And it was just this like epitome of young people who are employed and have reached some stability and have some community and are just kind of organically recognizing the needs around them and going out and starting to do it. And just people starting to be like, this kind of breaks molds. Like, I don't understand. Like, is your company making you do it? Are you a charity? Like, like head blow. So We've had a lot of those kind of things, right? Where it's not like a structured corporate program, but we start to see some of the things that we've been shooting for, take effect.
That's spectacular. So it resonates through the culture, the community, the individuals that you've given opportunity to. I love that story. Who do you work for? Why are you here? It's just the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Okay, so and it's we talked about, we met as we were both doing really two sides of a coin as far as automation, digitization, software oriented, and then human oriented. But you've always been technical too, as you said, training in Ruby on Rails. Software was a heart of what you did. It's what you went to school for, and there's been not necessarily a pivot, but sort of a focus re-emphasis in a lot of the impact sourcing industry. It's still creating opportunities for individuals, still creating great jobs, still creating opportunities, still creating those leaders and communities. But so much of the work is now oriented towards technology. In a lot of cases, it's around machine learning and algorithm training. Talk about that. What are the sorts of tasks that CloudFactory does for clients?
It's a good call. I agree. I mean, I think the technology tie for us has always been, obviously as a computer scientist, it really was that idea of, hey, if we want to scale this thing, if we really want to make an impact, we need to invent some tech, right? Like to actually coordinate and kind of create this idea of sending your work to the cloud and having it come back, in minutes, high quality. Like we need to invent some technology. So we've been totally taking that approach of, we love people, but we know that we can't get anything done if we don't combine human and machine intelligence, even within the platform and workforce, kind of the human part. And so that's always been our approach. Kind of what we've been doing, for the world the last decade has mostly been around kind of augmenting technology and kind of being the humans in the loop within a lot of different technology platforms where you take a photo of a receipt and it goes up, or a photo of an invoice, or, and there's technology that's there, but it needs to be augmented by some people to do some of the work, a lot of the work, a little of the work, review the work, exceptions, etc. And so we've really kind of built CloudFactory around that idea of augmenting technology with humans in the loop, right? What happened is, like you said, we've always been doing high quality data work at scale, right? So impact sourcing, CloudFactory, a lot of companies have been really trying to master how do you blend people, process, technology to do that. And then the killer app came along of saying, okay, actually, we don't need data to just augment. We don't need to do the data work to just augment on the back end the technology, but actually now there's been this breakthrough 2012 of deep learning and this whole change of saying, actually, the way we create software, right, is no longer kind of the logo kind of turtle programming, right, rules. It's actually giving it a whole bunch of data to just train it. And so how we create software is crazy for me. It's changing literally like a carpet ripped out underneath our feet, right? Where it's not rules-based, if then else for loops. It is, we're going to give a huge amount of examples of trained data. And that's going to be how we actually create these models that then kind of make predictions and kind of real-time learn to be able to make decisions and run our businesses and run our lives in some cases. And so we kind of have really over the last few years, the business is very augment and it's train and augment, right? So sometimes train and sustain artificial intelligence. And so we work on both ends for a lot of tech teams around the world that are doing autonomous vehicles, training up self-driving cars, drone related technology, medical imaging, you go on and on. It's just touching so many industries. And so it's supervised learning, obviously, is the technical part, a lot of computer vision, natural language processing. We get to be the team, the partner that comes along these tech teams to say, let's train up and get us a huge amount of high quality data. And then when we get into production, there's still a need to kind of augment and handle those exceptions. And so we get to be kind of the humans in the loop on both sides.
That's great. Here's where I context switch for a moment. And so stay with me. I just want to allude to and thank everyone who has joined us and has shared that they've joined us. So a shout out to Russ from rainy Tampa. Yes, it is raining outside. Mario Hill from Las Vegas. Hello. Hello, Kim from Rhode Island. Istvan from Budapest. Simon from London. Shay from Boston. Gretchen from Dallas. Brian from South Carolina. James Island, South Carolina. Ravi Kumar from Vancouver. Pritwish from Chennai. Sandeep from Atlanta. Cindy from, I don't know, from Dallas. There you are, Cindy. And from Sunil from Hyderabad. Mr. Runer, Tom Runer from London. Hello, Tom. Thank you for joining. Candace from Salt Lake City. Gretchen. Stacy, Preeti, thank you for saying good stuff. Love that you guys have joined from all over the world. If you've got any questions for Mark, he, I hope it's clear already, has an incredible amount of experience in so many different areas. So please put your questions in the comments. So Mark, back to, okay, so it's humans and software in the loop. You're augmenting, you're training and then augmenting and supporting. Is there ever a time when the robots put us out of work?
It's a great question, right? We have a really strong opinion on this, and I don't know. It's pretty deep rooted, right? I mean, everyone's got kind of. I think we're more on the techno optimism side of things, where we really fundamentally believe that we are the creators of technology, and that is something that we're going to struggle and have problems and ethical conflicts and challenges ahead of us. We all know that. And if you don't, we can talk to Elon. But that's a reality. But generally, we fully believe that humans are really important. And it's just, I mean, just celebrate, I love watching those people are awesome type videos, right? Where you just see these unbelievable physical and mental. And so I just continue to believe that people have a really big an important creator kind of like approach to creating the technology, but also controlling and using and leveraging technology. And we see that, I see that for the long term, but I think one of the fun things is, we've worked with hundreds of different teams and technologies, and we're always surprised at how much it's positioned as being technology, but under the hood, right? Like we had articles that were written a long time ago, like the dirty little secret of Silicon Valley, right? Is that so much of it is powered by humans, right? And it's shocking. It continues to shock me so many years later, and I'm sure you've seen it as well, right? Like we love technology. It's improving. It's a huge part of the future of work. But anyone who tries to say that people are not a part of the future of work, a big part, I think are just very, very much not in it.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the historical story of Mechanical Turk, which is why Amazon named their thing what they did. It was a person in a chessboard. I mean, there's still huge amounts of value in humans being involved. As you say, we are amazing. I do have to divulge to those listening, just to for sake of where my point of view is coming from. I am a human. And so I have I guess I'm sort of jaded and have a point of view towards us. But no, we create empathy and experience. We create insights that are difficult to train, even in the most advanced of algorithms. And I guess our algorithms, as you said, you're training in medical fields, you're training in autonomous vehicles. There's an intense amount of complexity out there that we are still required to contribute to the training to enable. What sort of training do you need to do for your teams? I mean, these algorithms and machine learning and deep learning is pretty complex. How do you prepare your team to be able to train and work with these algorithms?
Yeah, it's certainly training is a key part of the model, right? For us is, it's probably broken down into, we work with kind of a huge amount of annotation and data labeling platforms and tools that are out there nowadays. And so there's an aspect, I think, of kind of foundational training, right? Where it's like, okay, generally you're engaging people, most of we call them cloud workers, right? They're 18 to 30, probably average age about 23, recent grads, typically somewhere in college, somewhere a little bit older. And so they're pretty digitally savvy. But so it's getting them pre-trained on the actual tools, as always, right? Like, can they be fluent in the actual tools to be able to do things like, yes, bounding boxes, but what if we want to do semantic segmentation or, 3D point cloud annotation, right? So like a lot of stuff within computer vision. So there's kind of basic tooling and kind of foundational training on how to do different sorts of, if you're tagging text, or if you're categorizing images, or if you're, annotating video, and all these sorts of things. So there's that foundational tooling and kind of task type training. And then, of course, as we have our workforce begin on our platform to work on different specific, we call them work streams or projects, then there's specific kind of instruction and business rule training for those. And those are very agile. Those are always changing because, on the back of it, there's data scientists that are there trying to figure out, I don't know exactly how I need to get this data structured in order to create an algorithm that's going to have a breakthrough in the world. And so we get to partner. And a big part of what we do is, yes, it's foundational training, but it's also that really real-time agile. How do we be able to coordinate, like not just a handful, but sometimes dozens or hundreds or thousands of people to be able to very quickly kind of turn on a dime. So training is huge, doing it kind of in a distributed manner. Those are the problems that we love to solve. And right. It's even within solving all that, it goes back to the whole human and machine intelligence, right? It's like, we love when both are thriving, when you really build amazing technology and you pair it with highly motivated, highly engaged, well-trained, accountable people. And right. That's what we always see in every solution. You bring some percentage, some balance, some mix, find the perfect mix of both those things. And that's the future of work. It's a current, present, and its future. It's going to change, right? The mix is going to change. The roles are going to change. There's going to be huge amounts of change. We're going to work on higher order things. We love that. We're already seeing that happen. But yeah,
I love that description, just because you're right. It's orchestrating and constantly adjusting this portfolio balance of how much of any particular sort of agent is involved in a task. So it was all people when we only had people. Then it became sort of mechanical automation, I suppose. When we had that, it then moved to this digital software version of it. And then that interplay and coexistence between teams to train the software, to apply it, to evolve it. Love it. We could go on for, maybe we should, in another show, talk about that sort of rebalancing and that constant sort of adjustment as technology and people change. But I want to pivot. Actually, I want to shout out to a few other people who've joined. Brian Duncan, hello. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you're well in California. Natalie Meyer in Vermont. Hello, Natalie. Thanks for joining. And Brian Maloney, solid reference. He says, take the robot out of the person and you'll maximize the value of both. You may know, Brian, that's a Professor Leslie Wilcox quote that's become quite popular in the application of RPA to workspace, is taking the robot out of the human, enabling people to be our best selves and let automation handle what it can. So thank you, Brian. Let's pivot, Mark, to you as an entrepreneur. I mean, you mentioned you'd started companies before CloudFactory, so you are a serial entrepreneur. I too love cereal. And you've been extraordinary at both creating the mission, starting the company. You've raised, I think it's $78 million in the last several years to grow and expand CloudFactory. I guess, how has that been? What plans do you have? Are you looking at other countries? You're in Nepal, Kenya, US, UK. Are you looking to expand from a footprint perspective, from a service perspective? That's basically a long-winded, meandering question that just says, "How's it going?" And like, I'm so proud of you. You've done such a spectacular job. What's in the plans for Mark Sears?
Yeah, I mean, there's something about the word entrepreneurship, right, that just does get me excited, because I think, we've gotten to kind of a later stage of the startup journey, right? There's lots of arguments on what is a startup, right? Is Google still a startup? Probably not. But, I think I'm really realizing the need for that ongoing level of taking risk, right? And it's probably putting more structure around it than we ever have been before. But we continue to see a fast moving world that is in the need of, for us, it's this vision of cloud labor, of being able to have kind of a, cloud computing, cloud storage. There's these amazing technologies that are allowing creators and enterprises and innovators and entrepreneurs to pull together and work at a higher level to just solve problems facing humanity. And so I get super excited about being an entrepreneur who's trying to create some of that infrastructure to enable other entrepreneurs to kind of have access to this cloud labor and to be able to dial up and dial down and get high quality access to talented, motivated, skilled people to help kind of operate and train and make their dreams a reality. And so for me personally, I have to tell you, like we talk about impact sourcing, and it's so much at its core, its pure definition, right, really is how we see our mission and opportunity in places like Nepal and Kenya. And we absolutely are continuing to look to expand globally. And we are excited about that. Nothing yet to announce, but we absolutely are pursuing. But that part of it is only half of it. I'm really starting to discover more of the other half. I mean, we're working with unbelievable entrepreneurs who are building world-changing things, and they are also very mission-driven to create technology to change things. And a lot of them are leveraging AI. And I get so excited about seeing us provide them this tool that's accelerating, improving their ability to go out and create unbelievable change. And so, I think that's, for me, it's a little kind of the meta, right? Of like, wow, we get to continue to innovate and take risk and build out this cloud labor infrastructure that becomes a tool for entrepreneurs to go out and do unbelievable things. And, we're often kind of being drawn and finding a lot of organizations who are kind of similarly inspired to kind of see the world similarly. Like, yes, we are here to drive a lot of profit, but that's what allows us to do what we really want to do as an organization. And so we're finding a lot of those organizations, and it's got me pumped. It's got me excited.
That's great. Well, so you individually serve as an inspiration and an example of what can be done. But as you say, your capabilities are almost, both from technology standpoint, but just a concept standpoint, are a platform for further exploration and prosperity. You're enabling other entrepreneurs, and and nobody's better positioned to see this than you. I think I see it a bit from where I sit. There really is an aspiration in achieving those combined outcomes of obviously entrepreneurial success, but at the same time, some degree of positive impact in communities and in the world. And I don't know, maybe it's just as a result of what we've seen over the last few decades on the planet. Maybe it's the way that we're encouraging and teaching kids today to be global minded. But are you getting a sense that more entrepreneurs have that, I suppose, triple bottom line, for lack of a better term, emphasis on succeeding, doing well for themselves, but also doing good for the world?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many trends that we're all, we see. I think it's if anything, you see pressure on organizations to try and almost reverse engineer and find their purpose, right? Which I think is actually a fun process. It's a hard process, right? Really hard to live life as a business that's been trying to drive profit, and then all of a sudden try and discover really what is your purpose in this world that, and because employees are demanding it, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. It's like you said, there's a generation that's been coming up that are just saying, I'm not going to, life is short. I'm going to put all of me into something that I believe in. And if you aren't on a mission, if you're just a business, I'm not coming to give, I'm not up for that. And so we're absolutely seeing that as a society, right? A shifting of the generations that are driving a business to say, I'm not going to slave away for 40, 50, 60 hours a week for decades, unless it's something that I truly can understand how we're going to make a difference. And so the good news is that, there's a lot more opportunities, a lot of businesses that are kind of more native, kind of digital natives, right? There's kind of like a purpose-driven natives, right? Where they're creating businesses to say, now we've got things the right way around, like we don't, we breathe. Yes, we need to breathe, but that oxygen is just to help us to continue to live, to pursue what we're called to individually. And of course, the same analogy as a business. So it's happening. I think there's different names, there's different structures, but it's good to see.
I like that, in that you have both your digital native and purpose native. In that digital's at your DNA and core. I mean, you personally, software was your training, your inspiration, your core, but contributing to communities. So there was purpose in it. You're right. There are a lot more companies spending a lot more time on their purpose statements than maybe just their mission and vision statements. So hopefully the trend continues. Mark Sears, thank you so much. This has been as exciting and as insightful as I knew it would be. Everything from impact sourcing and creating prosperity and livelihoods to talking about AI and deep learning and algorithm training to entrepreneurship. It's the whole package.
It's always fun. Always fun.
Thank you, everybody, for joining around the world. If you have any questions, please continue to feed them. We'll see them after the show. And in the show notes, too, Mark, I'll put some links to, you've written some tremendous blogs over the years that I really got a lot from and learned a lot about, both about the work you're doing, but also the impact that sourcing can have and technology can have. So thank you for that. Any last thoughts, any last musings on the state of the world and where entrepreneurship and AI and creating prosperity is going?
Because we talked a lot about it, and I'm actually really happy that we talked about it kind of a step back from the current context, but I will kind of maybe close with that. One thing that we're seeing as a general trend is there's been this huge AI push that's been growing, you can say the last 5 years, the last 10 years. But there's so much momentum that's been there, and then the crisis hits, and how does that shape things? Well, one thing we're seeing is that this idea of, it was very moonshot driven, right? It was very much, we're going to create some AI that's going to almost kind of fully disrupt, right? And go like 5 steps forward. And there's even some people who were starting to question, like, is technology ready to go there? Can we really do things like full level 5 autonomous vehicles? And I think what's happening is people are kind of dialing back and saying, okay, let's think a little more tactical. Let's think a little bit more short to medium term in terms of how we use AI. And actually what's interesting is that's kind of affecting that view of kind of the human in the loop where, well, what instead of automating 90% or 100%, what if we could just start and kind of get going with like, maybe it's 25%, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 75%, and we can augment with people. And so I'm actually really encouraged because I think that's probably how we should be doing it anyways. So I think there's a little bit of a correction of more of an incremental approach, a tactical approach that really is going to be embracing more of the human and machine intelligence together. And it's going to get us going with more applications in more industries. So anyways, maybe random, but hopefully it kind of ties that all together. And it's a trend that I start to see and I really hope happens.
No, it's a great point. And we really are seeing people look to, I guess, tragedy is the mother of invention or mother of pragmatism and tactical invention, as you say, because so many people have been put in a position where we need to find ways to augment and enable and supercharge. And so yes, people are, there's a lot of talk about is now when digital transformation actually happens, is now the kick in the pants, the true catalyst for investment and serious look at how do we apply software and technology and how can it not be? How can it not be adopted when enterprises are looking for every which way to continue to thrive and continue to employ the people they do, continue to take care of their shareholders? I think the shadows, the echo of what we're all living through globally is going to live with us for a long time and set new foundations for the speed at which adoption happens. And as you say, the way in which adoption happens. So, great point.
Good.
Well, with that, thank you, OneTAKE listeners, for joining us once again. This show will be on the OneTAKE website when we finish stitching it up at the end. You can also listen to this over various different podcast streams. So thanks a million. Hope everyone stays healthy, safe, and well. And have a great day. Talk to you again very soon.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ian.